Hey, this is Gregory, and this week on the Friday Forge, we're going to make a vintage display cutting board out of poplar and sapele I had lying around in the garage.
Let me fly towards my hands, towards my hands.
First thing I'll do is joint the edge of the sapele. From the last project I used with it, it was pretty jagged. I'm not looking for the straightest of edges, just enough to get flat. And there we are, nice and flat. Now that I have one edge jointed on the sapele, I'll go ahead and mark the poplar with rough measurements to match the length of the sapele. Here I'll cross-cut the poplar to length. Now I don't advocate for what I'm about to do here. Cutting this length of board on this size of table saw is stupid. As you can see, the board after it's cut comes off the table, but I felt confident in using the cross-cut blade as I figured I'd be okay. But in this case it would have been better to use a circular saw. Now I'll cut the strips of sapele to width. What you use is up to you. I think in this case I used 1 1/4 inch. And I'll get the measurement of the sapele to strip down the middle as well. This step is pretty straightforward. For me, I'm not looking for total perfection. I knew after glue up I'd send it through the planer, so no stress involved here. Just get it in the ballpark. I used parchment paper to separate the boards. The sapele glue up got a little messy to say the least. After glue up, I sent it through the planer. As you can clearly see, the snipe, even Brigham made mention of it when I sent him the video. But with it being a board that I'm going to make cuts in, I'm not worried. Just adds character. This part, looking back on it, really wasn't needed. You know, vintage. But I went ahead and squared the edges anyway. Plus, I had to get those different camera angles for cinematography's sake. Now, I know I said I did this with only scraps, and while I did, I was only able to get 3 boards out of it. So after talking with Brigham, I ran to Lowe's and I bought a 6-foot board of sapele. I really wanted to see how many I could make in one weekend, and unlike earlier, I used the crosscut sled this time, though a circular saw would have been best knowing that the measurements aren't critical. Here I use a 1-inch spade bit to drill the hole, which my drill is extremely underpowered for. Now it's time to jigsaw the poplar board I bought from Lowe's. I'm going to add a handle into this as well. Remember, this is vintage, so no need to make anything symmetrical. We're going for the look as if it were made with hand tools, which is great for me because I have no conceptual idea how to make a straight line. Here I'm using 80 grit sandpaper to knock off the edges and to make a slight bevel. And we'll do the same with the poplar and sapele. Now we'll distress the wood. I'll use a hatchet, machete, and razor blades. Now this is my first time doing this, so I had to figure out how to handle everything properly, but I got better with the subsequent boards. I was more or less worried about chopping my hands off. I know, my technique, as you can see, is truly amazing. Very alpha male. Now I'll take a board that I've already torched and use my sander to take off the charred part and make it go deeper into the sapele. Looking back, this wasn't needed. For this project I went with two different stains. The one I'm using here is Minwax Early American. I love that rich, dark look, and you can see that the cuts that we made earlier are getting nice and dark for that vintage look we're going for. I then immediately sand the stain to get ready for the next coat. After sanding, I immediately apply the next stain. This technique is called stain stacking. For this stain, I'll use the Minwax Weathered Oak. Now, to my untrained eye, I'm not too sure if I can see the effect. On some parts of the boards, I can, but for the majority of the board, it makes little to no effect. In the future, I'll either wait the recommended 2-hour dry time before sanding, or I'll just not stain stack altogether. Tell me what you think. Now it's time to bring out the inner pyro of us all. Let's burn some wood. Now how you choose to burn the wood is entirely up to you. For me, I just did the outside of the board on the face. But for my other boards, you'll see at the end, I didn't go as dark. Now be very careful when doing this. It's extremely flammable and I did not wait for the stain to dry. I have a fire extinguisher next to me and I also have rocks. One of my boards actually completely caught on fire. I had to throw it into the rocks and stamp it out. Also, don't let your wife see you doing this in the garage. She'll get pretty upset. And I'm not saying that I have first-hand knowledge of this at all. Because this is a display board, I used Minwax Polycleric Clear Gloss Polyurethane. That's a mouthful. Once again, sky is the limits here. Use whatever you see fit. After the poly dried, I wasn't overly thrilled with how it looked, so I lightly sanded it down with 1000 grit to get off some of the sheen. Then I went to my old trusty walrus oil. I'm sure there's better stuff out there, but for this project, when you want to keep the cost low, I don't think you can get much better than walrus oil. I hope this video inspired you to go into your own wood pile and put something together. All these boards are available on our Etsy page. Links are in the description.